it's time to get back into the middle of Exodus as we continue teaching through the Bible. So we finally wrapped up things last lesson about servitude, and we're starting right off the bat here with some other commands that we see, some other laws, some verses in this section, Exodus 21 through 23. That's where all these will be coming from. Let's look right here with verse 22. Here's a really big one. Chapter 21, verse 22. When men strive together and hit a pregnant woman, so that her children come out, but there is no harm, the one who hit her shall surely be fined, as the woman's husband shall impose on him, and he shall pay as the judges determine. But if there is harm, then you shall pay life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, stripe for stripe. So you have two guys fighting. One of them hits a pregnant woman, and essentially she gives birth early. So she's got the kids out of her now, right? The kid, or it says children, maybe it's one child, maybe twins, whatever it is. The child is now born. So what happens there? Well, if there's no harm, now, the woman has been hit, but in this fight, right, maybe she's been punched, whatever it is, the child is now out. We look at, is there any harm? So is there any serious damage? Now, this doesn't specify, this is really key, that it does not specify if there's any damage, any harm to the woman. Right? The child is born, and it just says if there's any harm. So that would include the woman, for sure. But so that also includes the child. So, if there's no harm, okay. And what does it say? The one who hit her shall surely be fined, right? So he's in trouble. He has done something wrong. He's caused distress. He has struck the woman. This is wrong, and so he's going to pay a penalty, which the husband says, here's what I think you should have to pay, and the judge determines, okay, yeah, that's fine, or like, no, that's overkill. The judge makes the call on that, but the woman, it was wronged, and so there is this punishment. But if there is harm, okay, so this includes for the child, if the child comes out dead, that guy who hit her, his punishment is death. Because it is, what does it say? You shall pay life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. So if there is harm, whether it's to the woman or to the child, if you kill that child and the child comes out dead, then you are dead. This, probably no need to say, has a lot of application for in America as we continue to have a lot of discussions about this sort of, obviously not someone hitting a woman and her ended up, giving birth, but when women are pregnant, what's the value of what's inside of a pregnant woman? What's the value there? Well, this says a lot of value, actually equal value to anyone else. This right here indicates God sees what is inside the woman as a human being that has the same human value, the same human dignity. If in the Bible, if you kill an animal that belongs to someone else, you don't get the death penalty. You pay for the animal. You have an animal. We'll see in other verses. You can look at this in this section actually that you killed this animal. Well, or even your animal killed their animal, and your animal was in the habit of that. That's we look at the ox where it says, verse 35, when one man's ox butts another's so that it dies, then they shall sell the live ox and share its price, and the dead beast also they shall share. Or if it is known that the ox has been accustomed to gore in the past, and its owner has not kept it in, he shall repay ox for ox, and the dead beast shall be his. So you're gonna pay him, or maybe you're gonna give him your ox, but it's not that guy's life that owns the ox that is on the chopping block, as it were, right? When somebody when they steal an animal, it says in chapter 22, it talks about that. It's not the death penalty. There's a lot of different things that happen that can be involving your property, or can be involving your animals. These things don't involve the death penalty. When the child in the womb dies from what this guy did, punching the woman, it's the death penalty. So we see the value that God places, that this is human life, that we go back to Genesis 9 for that death penalty. This right here is showing you get the death penalty for if it's the mother that loses her life, or if it's her child who was in the womb. So that's a really important one. So I wanted to start off right there because of what that means for the context of what we're looking at in the country of America right now, as people argue over the value of that life in the womb. Then we can move on to some that are maybe a little less applied to us these days. But when an ox gores a man, so probably doesn't happen a lot in America, or a woman to death, the ox shall be stoned, and its flesh shall not be eaten, but the owner of the ox shall not be liable. But if the ox has been accustomed to goring in the past, and its owner has been warned, but has not kept it in, so in this case, you knew better, it was your fault, this thing that is under your authority that you should have kept in, tied up, put behind a fence, whatever, it went and killed someone, and it kills a man or a woman, the ox shall be stoned, and its owner also shall be put to death. If a ransom is imposed on him, then he shall give for the redemption of his life whatever is imposed on him. If it gores a man's son or daughter, he shall be dealt with according to the same rule. So, and then we at the end, if the ox gores the slave, master, or female, so that's the servant, the owner shall give to their master 30 shekels of silver, and the ox shall be stoned. So we have here that you can have a ransom price in this particular kind of a case. So there's a little nuance here where, yes, you can ask that. You could say, no, this person, it's their fault even if they didn't actually directly do this, right? They did not go kill that person. But their animal, who was under their authority, and they should have known better, their animal did this. So it's a little different than the person going and actually, murdering someone. But there's this negligence that caused someone else to die. Then you do have a way, it kind of, you have this lesser punishment that's allowed, which is a ransom. All right, you killed, my kid, and so you owe me $1 million or something like that. Obviously they didn't use dollars back then, but that's essentially what's going on. You killed this person, and so if either you die or you pay this, whatever it is, he shall give for the redemption of his life whatever is imposed on him. And if it gores a man's son or daughter, he shall be dealt with according to the same rule. And so someone does have the option of saying, no, you don't have to die, but you have to reimburse this much. And so again, it is different because it's not this guy who is actually, trying to murder someone. It is a case of negligence. But we see in that God he's giving different commands that fit different particular scenarios. With an ox, you have this one situation in verse 35 where it's kind of the normal situation, but then if it's known that the ox tends to do that, then you have a different situation. And so that's really good. You'll see that God isn't just giving these like blanket statements, right? He's giving particular, here's this particular case, here's a particular response, here's this particular case, here's a particular response, and so on and so forth. And it's really supposed to be the punishment fits the crime. So murder is one thing. Negligence is another. You have things like that show that God's giving different situations, different responses. We have verse 1 of chapter 22. If a man steals an ox or a sheep and kills it or sells it, he shall repay 5 oxen for an ox and 4 sheep for a sheep. Now, this you might say, well, why is it that much? I don't know why is it that exact number. I'm not sure. But if you think about it, this makes sense as far as saying having more than just the one. So if you know, well, I could try to steal maybe my friend's phone or something, right? I could steal my friend's phone, and if the law is, well, if we catch you, then you have to give it back. Okay, that's not much of a deterrent, and that's actually not particularly just, because you're not really getting punished for that in any way. You're just not getting what you wished you had. But if it was, not only do you have to give it back, obviously, but you got to buy them 2 more. You have to give them the money, maybe the equivalent of 2 more phones. Well, if your whole thing was that you didn't want to spend money on a phone and you wanted to take your friends because you wanted a new phone and you didn't want to pay for that, then now, actually, I'm not only not getting the thing I was trying to get, now I'm actually having to spend more money. I didn't want to spend money, and now I'm spending extra. So there's more of this motivation to not do it in the first place, because if you're stealing, your whole goal is to not have to give up something, right? I want a sheep, I want to, feed this family that's coming over, and I don't want to give them any of my sheep, so I'm going to steal my neighbor's sheep, and then, I get to keep all of my sheep, and I use my neighbor's sheep for dinner. And then they find out, and then you have to give 4 more sheep. Well, all right, you didn't want to give any of them, so you didn't want to give the 1 sheep, but now you're having to give 4. So that's kind of a way that I think we see in the Bible. God treats punishments differently than, at least, I don't know the rest of the world, but at least in the U.S., a lot of times it's just, you get caught doing something, and depending on what it is, you either pay a certain amount of money or you spend a certain amount of time in jail, and that's pretty much it. There's not really a lot of variety. There's not really a lot of punishment fitting the crime. It's just like you have the punishment is just one of these 2 things, and then maybe they vary a little bit as far as time in jail or amount of money, but that there's not something that really makes sense, that really fits with a particular crime like we have here. You steal something, you have to give it back, and then you have to give back this much more of that thing, right? When we talked about servanthood, one way that you would have servants was, we said, if you're poor, right? But another way is if you committed a crime of stealing, you would have to then be a servant to that person to pay back. And so you end up not only not getting what you want, but now you're having to work for that person and earn that back, essentially paying them back by working for them. And that actually could be a really helpful thing in another way, because, at least theoretically, right, if someone is, there's someone there that's doing the right thing, making a good living, working hard, and so they've got the money, and then someone else that doesn't want to do that, that doesn't want to have, they don't have good character, and so they're going to steal that. Well, now if they have to work for the person that does have good character, then as they're working for that person, they are being taught good character by that person. Now, of course, sinful world doesn't always end up happening that way. But that's kind of more what I'm talking about as far as having these specific punishments for specific crimes rather than just, all right, well, it was a traffic violation, so throw in some amount of money there. Okay, well, it was more serious. We'll throw you in jail for a while, and it's actually trying to do something where we see what is actually going on. What is it that they wanted to illegitimately get out of this? All right, now we're going to reverse that. It's going to be the opposite. So we see that in a number of things throughout this, and lastly, we see some stuff about social justice and about Sabbath. So those are the things that we'll talk about next time. We have a number of other verses in here that talk about different rules that God has for people. And again, these are all specific to the Israelites as far as these specific case laws that are all coming from the Ten Commandments. That we have the Ten Commandments, and because we have these, you can see all of these other ones come from that. From don't steal, or from don't murder, or from don't commit adultery, things like that. You have all these other ones that come from that. And again, if you have any questions about these other ones that we haven't covered, then comment below. But next time, we're going to be on the second half of chapter 22 and going into chapter 23, talking about first social justice kind of issues, things in society, justice issues for the society, and then issues of Sabbath, things related to that. So that's where we'll wrap it up today. We'll see you again next time. Thank you for watching that video. I hope that it helped you learn a little bit more about the Bible today. And if you'd like to continue to learn more about the Bible, then we have plenty of other videos on the channel. And if this has been helpful for you, then you can always let me know by subscribing to the channel. And hopefully I'll be able to continue to help you learn even more about God's Word. Thanks.